Hi, Carol. How are you today?
Um, Not that great. Um, I'm trying to figure out what I'm gonna do because right now I'm not working. Um, I'm trying to find work. I just left my waitressing job. But I met somebody like a month ago at this hospital program, like outpatient hospital program. And when we first met, it was like really like he was super charming, really attractive. I ended up giving him my number, and
I'm sorry to interrupt. Was he
yeah,
also a patient at the hospital program?
yes,
Okay. And it was for psychiatric
and it was
hospitalization?
first, yes,
Okay.
and so he so I gave him my number, and so we started hanging out, um, and we kind of like started hanging out like really quick. But one of the things that's been like really bothering me is that I feel like I like need him to survive. Like I need him or else I'm basically like nothing. Like I don't feel like I don't know where else to go. Basically, like I'm living at my parents, so I feel like when I go there, it's kind of a break for me, but it's also not because he says things and just is very hypersexual. So it's like I don't know where to draw the line, and I also feel like I really feel like I'm being like a victim of I like I don't even know if it's domestic violence. Like I feel like everything that's been going on, like I've had so much acne.
All right. I'm gonna slow down a bit just to get a better understanding of what's going on. So you've been seeing him for about a month now, and you two are romantically intimate,
Mhm,
and you met at your hospital program, but
mhm.
you live with your parents. Are you staying with him periodically? Because you said that you guys kind of you're hanging out a lot. What does a lot mean to you?
Like I'm staying at his house
Hmm.
like some nights like maybe a couple days out of the week I'll come home and sleep.
Do you spend like the day with him too?
Yeah, and we won't do anything.
I know that you said you recently left your job. Is he also not working?
He's not
Okay, so you guys are spending a lot of time together. Now, you said something pretty powerful. You said that you need him. What does that mean to you? What is need? How does that differ from wanting to be with somebody?
I feel like I need him because since I moved back to my parents, I lost like all of my social support.
Mhm.
Now that I'm like living at home, I mean my family's social support, but like he's like the only person that I like really have any relationship with at all. Like I don't have anyone else. Um, that I don't know. I don't feel like I have anybody else, so I have to hang out with him.
Do you want to hang out with him, or do you just feel like you're doing it because you have
Both,
to? Both. All right.
both. I also feel like this sense of that I like need to help him because like he'll wake up in the morning and he'll start like having panic attacks and like especially after he drinks and he starts like hyperventilating to the point where he is like throwing up like on the side of the bed and like won't and I'll be like, "Grab my medicine, like you need to grab my medicine." And I'm like and so I'm like trying to help him through that.
That
And
sounds like it might be kind of scary. How does that make you feel when he's going through that?
I feel like it's really frustrating because he said things like suicidal things. So it makes me feel like if I leave, that he's gonna do that.
It's a lot of responsibility to take on. You mentioned domestic violence. What
Mm,
what made you use that phrase? Is there something that's happening that is violent or that you might seem or that you think is abusive in your relationship?
there was a night where we were out and we'd gotten back, and I forgot what the statements were that were exchanged,
Mhm.
but he took me and he pushed me to the ground, and I made it clear that like I wasn't going to accept that, and so like I got in my car and I like started crying,
Mhm.
and he came back. He came outside and then started saying, "I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry," and then was like, "I'm sorry, I was sexually abused," and so I felt like it was justifiable to push me. I don't think it was.
That's understandable. That's some good insight on your part that you were able to acknowledge that the behavior is inexcusable. I mean, even though he gave you a reason, it sounds like you feel like it was wrong. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
I do.
Have you ever experienced anything like that before?
No.
No, this is, what about like verbal aggression, like arguments, maybe where somebody calls you names kind of thing?
Yeah. I was dating somebody in the military, and they were abusive verbally, emotionally, and verbally abusive when they got back from Iraq.
Okay.
Yeah, but that was like years and years and years ago.
Hmm.
So this kind of
Excuse me.
situation has been really impeding because I really feel like so hopeless
Mhm.
on how I can. I don't know. He's just so controlling.
Hmm. What other types of ways is he controlling of you? Because that's the first time you mentioned that word.
He goes through my phone and he constantly like looks at my like messages, and he even looked up messages from like years and years and years ago, and then was using them against me, not realizing that these were like previous relationships. Like you couldn't distinguish that these were like previous conversations.
Mm-hmm.
I had tried to go to a friend's house once, and like then he was like, "Okay, make sure you're back before like whatever it was, like an hour later." And I wasn't because I don't. I felt like that's just ridiculous. Why should I listen to this? Like you're not my parent.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so when I wasn't back in time, he accused me of cheating on him.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Started making like a lot of false allegations. Um, he even had my phone and like wouldn't give it to me and was forcing me to um, call my ex-boyfriends, any boyfriend I ever dated,
Mm-hmm.
and tell them that I was with Chris now, and that they no longer mean anything to me, even though people I dated like there's still feel. I mean, there's not still feelings, but like that we ended on good notes. I didn't want to ruin. Like he was like, you have to do this in order for me to be with you. You have to tell them
Mm-hmm.
that you're with me and that they're they don't matter.
And it sounds like he has some insecurities in that respect, that maybe you don't want to be with him or that you want to be with other men. Does that sound accurate?
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes in relationships like this, it's possible for someone that has deep insecurities like that to kind of use a method of power or control over somebody that they express that they care about in almost a manipulative sense. Um, have you heard about relationship dynamics in an abusive relationship? So there's something called a power and control wheel. Oftentimes, um, people will do things in a drastic and manipulative effort to try to gain power and control over a situation if they feel like they're losing that. Sometimes in relationships, it sounds like he might be doing this to try to, I don't want to say overcompensate, but try to obtain some type of power and control over you, given, I mean, you guys just started dating.
Mm-hmm.
There's something called love bombing. which can be really common in these types of relationships where
Yeah,
you
he
seem
did do
like
that.
the greatest person in the world, and then sometimes it can escalate into controlling behavior, can turn into verbal aggression and then the physical aggression. So I'm not trying in any way to scare you, but to more educate you that this is a possibility. Just giving the information that you're describing to me, it could escalate to something like that. So when someone's in therapy with me, it's really important to me to help educate them on potential of certain things, just as a method of safety. Um, are these things that maybe you've thought of before that because it sounds like you're coming to me. I know you mentioned in your intake paperwork that you thought that your relationship was abusive and you wanted to talk to somebody about that. So I'm basing this conversation off of that. Do you feel like he is abusive in this respect? Okay.
Yeah, he was like really like he uses like really big words and like really like really long complex language that like I don't really understand half the time. And it's almost like although one time he like bought me flowers and like but he also like doesn't like to do things with me like outside. Like it's usually we just hang out inside. And he is I think one of the things too that kind of like led me to like be with him is because he's a school psychologist and I figured, he probably is like nice. Like he has like understanding of emotion and things. And I feel like now with him like constantly questioning where I am or what I'm doing, I think it's adding and he's always telling me like, "Oh, honey, I'm sorry," like, or not even I'm sorry, but "Oh, honey, like, we need to figure out what's wrong with you." And even though, like, because I'm like, I can get really tired and I'll like fall asleep on the couch, and he'll be like, "Oh, there's like something so wrong." Like he'll take it personally that I'm not like hanging out with him, and instead I'm like falling asleep. Um, and like his dad came over once and he was there to like fix something in the house and he told his dad in front of me that his dad needed to like look at the shower drain because my hair is falling out and it's like clogging the shower drain. And when he said it, he didn't really have any like the way he said it was like really demeaning almost. Like it just made me feel like really bad and just really upset that like he was just like, "Oh yeah, can you do that? Like Carol's hair is falling out in the drain."
How does it make you feel when I know you mentioned him being like your main social support? How does it feel when your main social support is saying such mean things about you or to you?
It makes me feel terrible, but it makes me feel desperate too. Like it's like I'll accept anything almost. Like it doesn't matter what he says.
Is that because you don't want to be without him or you don't want to be alone or do you have
Both.
any both?
Both. I don't want I feel like this caregiver role too. And I also feel like he's controlling me. And like one time I screenshotted like how to leave, like I looked up how to leave a narcissist because I felt like he was a narcissist. And I thought maybe I am in a narcissistic relationship and I don't see it and maybe I am. And so when I had screenshotted that in my phone, he actually had found that because he goes through my phone every day at any time, and I can't change my passcode because if I change my passcode, he'll ask me like why did I change my passcode? So he got really offended when he saw that and thought that it was about him, which it was. Um, and it just, yeah, I just don't know what to do. I mean, I don't know how to get out.
So I know that you're in an IOP program right now, and sometimes in these programs they talk about different relationship dynamics. Have they mentioned the word codependent relationship?
I think I've heard of it.
So, to your knowledge, what does codependency mean, or a codependent relationship? What does that mean?
Somebody that depends on somebody else for their happiness, for their own,
That-
for their own
That's a
happiness.
pretty decent definition. Do you feel like you might be having some codependent relationship characteristics with what's his name?
Chris.
With Chris?
Yeah.
What types of characteristics do you think that you have that might be codependent with Chris?
I can't be when it's hard for me to be alone.
Mhm.
Like I will just like show up at his house.
Mhm.
Sometimes don't even call. I'll just like show up. You know, obviously constantly thinking about him,
Mhm.
kind of interfering. It's kind of interfering with what I should be focusing on. Um, he did write. He gave me a reference for a job, and I didn't really have any references at that time because I was really sick and I moved and lost contact with people, and so I didn't have any social support. So I felt like I needed him too to. And I felt like because he was a school psychologist, it would be perfect. Um, but he also held that over my head, so like it made me feel like, oh, maybe he's not such a bad person if he gave me this like he said that he gave me a ravishing review.
That was his word. Well, that was pretty nice of him to call his own review ravishing, huh? In regard to the codependent relationship, sometimes when someone, whether it's they might have low self-esteem or they might have some attachment issues from maybe when they were a child, um, or the person has an illness, whether that's an addiction or a medical um, issue that they need constant monitoring for, it's really common for one of their loved ones to develop what's called codependency. So they almost take on their partner's issues as their own. And in the process, sometimes you might lose your sense of self or your self esteem. If it's already not that high, it might even get lower. These are some things that are coming to mind when you're talking about your relationship with Chris. I know that you came to therapy to try to gain some insight about whether or not the relationship is abusive, but from your standpoint, are you interested in maybe working on establishing a healthier relationship with Chris or even a different person? Or are you content with the way that your relationship is right now?
I don't really want to leave.
You'd want to leave the relationship.
I really think I should. I think it's helping me.
That sounds like a smart decision based on what you're telling me about there being potential abuse. Um, what types of, I guess for lack of a better word, safeguards do you have in place now in regard to leaving? I know sometimes when women leave relationships that can be abusive, there's potential for the man to be aggressive when they break up or to sometimes follow them or call them a lot of times or leave kind of mean voicemail messages. It's really important to kind of build that support system. So
My family has been like really big support.
Mhm.
Actually, they don't like him. They want me to, but I don't listen to them.
No.
And I think I need to start. I don't really have many other supports other than my family, and so, but I think I need to start maybe accepting some of the things that they have to offer.
Okay. Do you think that your family would be interested in, if it's up to you, maybe meeting and trying to develop a safety plan together to best support you so you can try to leave Chris?
Yeah.
I mean, in your favor, you guys have only been seeing each other for about a month, so you're not exclusively living together, and there hasn't been years of history. Not that that makes it any easier, but it might make it slightly safer. What are your feelings about leaving him? I know that you mentioned that you feel like you need him, um, but then also that you sound like it would be a safe decision or a better decision that you were to leave.
I think it would be to leave. I'm trying to think about how it would be to leave, and I feel like I would be really like anxious
Mhm.
and almost depressed, not knowing like what's next. Um, and I would always have the temptation. I think when I've tried to leave before, like permanently cut him off,
Mhm.
like by blocking his
You have
number.
already tried
I've
this?
tried this. It's like a temptation, and I just ignore my instincts and just unblock him and then text him back, or like show up at his house, or I'll even go there and like apologize for things that I don't know. Like I'll just go and apologize about stuff, and
So, the way that I like to look at codependency is it's an addiction to a person. So, when you're in recovery from that, or when you're helping to heal that part of yourself, you almost need to replace it with something like a healthier coping mechanism. Like somebody, have you ever smoked cigarettes?
sometimes
Do you still smoke? Okay. I'm trying to think of something that maybe you might have had as like a habit. I know like some people, let's use nail biting for an example. So if you bite your fingernails and you're wanting to stop that behavior, you need to replace it with something. In turn, some people put a rubber band around their wrist, and anytime they're looking to bite their fingernails, they kind of flick the rubber band quick to give them an idea
so like
um,
to do something
to do something different, but something healthy different.
different.
So that healthy different could be, I have some literature that I can review with you to help build better boundaries with yourself and with others and help you overcome some of these codependent characteristics that you might be experiencing, um, as well as psychoeducational information about abusive relationships or about codependency to not only help this relationship come to an end, but to prevent it from happening again in the future.
Okay. I feel like it's kind of like a pattern for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel like I've been in this situation before, and where it's like when you leave, it's like this piece of it's like somebody dies almost.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like it just like my anxiety gets so bad
Mm-hmm.
um, that I'm just like not able to even function really. And yeah,
So you mentioned that it's a pattern. Does that mean that you've experienced something like this before?
I've experienced something like this before, very prolonged for a very long time. It was like 3 years, and I was I shouldn't say I, but maybe it was. And one of the things that really always bothered me in that relationship was I would always get back. He would always say, "I'm sorry you feel this way.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry you feel this way about me." And every single time I felt like he did something wrong, his response was, "I'm sorry you feel this way." And for some reason, I feel like I don't know. I always felt like I was wrong for like I would always apologize after for like saying how I felt because
Mm-hmm.
clearly he wasn't acknowledging how I was what I was saying,
Mm-hmm.
and it was kind of looking like I was the problem or that there was something internally that I was feeling maybe.
And it doesn't sound like his apologies were very sincere if he was apologizing for something that you did or how you felt, for example. Not, I'm sorry I did this, I'm sorry that you feel this way about me doing something.
Right. Yeah. It was always like that. And then I started to become really codependent in the end where I got the help of a friend who helped me move out and I left. But that was really hard because I became really, really depressed and really anxious.